Welcome back to Kettlebells and Cocktails. I'm your host, John, back with my bestie, Nikki. Nikki, how are you?
I'm so excited for this episode. How are
Are
you
you?
doing? Yeah, I
I'm ex-
am. I'm really excited.
I'm excited. Yeah, we're doing some handicapping tonight. We're going to talk about the Rogue Invitational and who's going to win that darn thing. And we have an expert. We rarely have experts. No offense to all of our other guests, I guess.
I was
So
gonna
that's
say,
bad.
whoops.
Well, you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
normally you've got it's normally an athlete who technically is an expert, but they're not an expert in everybody else. They're only an expert in themselves. See how I recovered? That
true.
was good. That was
Mhm.
good, but we have
It was
Dave
very
Charlton
good.
on from Fran Lung Analytics. Dave, how are you?
Excellent. Thanks for having me on. How are you two tonight?
Good, good. I am very excited to hear what you have to say, Dave, when it comes to predicting the future and figuring out which athletes have a shot at really making a run for the podium at Rogue. Because part of the reason why I'm so stoked that you're here to sort of like lend us your insight is because the field is just so incredibly stacked that I'm even having a hard time figuring out, like in my own brain, who I think could be up there in the rankings. And
Well,
you bring a lot more into it than just gut and vibe. You look
right.
at the numbers, you look at the stats, you look at the history of these athletes, and so very curious as to what the data is gonna tell us.
Well, and that's why I love your work, Dave. So for those that don't follow Fran Lung Analytics already, you should. Nikki turned me on to you guys' page a month or two back. We were just chatting about, hey, we need to do some different stuff on the show, and what should we be looking at? And Nikki's like, have you seen this page? We should invite them on and talk about stuff. Now I'm a nerd, dude. I love statistics. I love math. And so I'm like, "Oh, this is right my wheelhouse." And sure as the world it is. Like, you get a lot of people like, "Oh, it's a useless stat." I'm like, "I love that stat." Like, I love, like, the nuance and the things people aren't thinking about, and you deliver that. So I'm excited to have you on to talk about some of this stuff. So, yeah, so let's jump in. Let's do this. Where do we
All
wanna
right.
start?
Well, I guess on the women's side, I guess picking picking the winners of rogues almost cheating just because it is so close to the CrossFit Games that there isn't a lot of time for people to gain fitness or lose fitness over the course of those course of 3 months. And all these athletes, for the most part, went to a head-to-head competition with each other in August at the games. I was looking back since the Rogue Invitational moved to the off-season competition in late October. Anybody who finished in the top 7 at the CrossFit Games ended up finishing top 10 at Rogue. Really, a lot of the lines in the sand have been set in terms of the games finishers, but a lot of it is a lot of jostling up and down just because a lot of the programming you see at Rogue is different than what we see at the CrossFit Games, which ends up making it interesting just to, from a fan's perspective, to not have the same or competition a few months later.
Well,
For sure.
I'm gonna challenge you on the fact that you can lose fitness from the game still now because I feel like I've lost plenty of fitness from the game still now.
The one thing, just to not bury the lead, I will say out loud, and I'm really curious to see how all of this shakes out in your analytics. But like the one thing that really throws a wrench into looking at it that way is bringing back Tia-Clair Toomey, of course. So that's like the shakeup that I'm ready to hear what you have to say on.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I think that's what everybody kind of wants to see. Unfortunately, fortunately, which makes it interesting is we don't have a lot of data of athletes coming back after 5 months postpartum, 6 months postpartum. I think with Annie Thor's daughter did it best when she finished third at the CrossFit Games, her first year back after becoming a mom. But I think that was give or take from the 12-month time frame to see
How
what
far out
Tia's
was
going to do.
Cara Sanders? How far out was she? Do we know? Do you remember, Nikki?
A ways,
Was
a
she?
ways out. Yeah.
I didn't think I thought she was less than a year when she came back to the games.
It
Mm,
might have been the open that she came back
Was it?
in, might have been somewhere in the 8, 9 months for the
I don't know.
open. And
I'm
or
old and ask a lot.
semifinals or something like that.
I don't know. I'm gonna Google it while you guys chat about this. How
Okay,
about
yeah.
that?
Good. Do that.
All
yeah,
right.
so
Sorry. I messed up your swing. Go ahead.
yeah, having Tia come back is definitely going to make things interesting. Obviously, she's the greatest. Six Fitness on Earth titles in a row. Was looking it up. The last time she didn't win an in-person competition was back in Memorial Day weekend 2017. It'll be interesting to see how she comes back. Although, again, in that head-to-head matchup versus Laura Horvath, reigning fittest on earth, um, she did win Rogue last year as well in a pretty dominating fashion with 4 event wins there. To me, it's really up in the air between these two. It's hard to argue against either of them just based off of what Laura's done over the past 12 months, stepping into that lead position. And Tia has a career like nobody else's. It'll be interesting to see. Make it exciting to watch just because there is no foregone conclusion. It'll be interesting to see how they position against each
I love it. I love when a competition isn't easy to predict because it makes it really exciting. And truthfully, when Tia's been competing those 6 championships in a row, it almost was a little boring because you kind of just knew she was going to come in and dominate. And when she's 300 points ahead on the leaderboard, it's kind of like, okay, it's a fight for second. So I love the drama of the storyline. But anyway, we can get to the podium. We'll get there via what spots 10 and up? Is that kind of what you're looking at, Dave?
other. Yeah, was kind of just working kind of way down from, I feel like those two would be really the fight for the top spot in terms of foregone conclusion. I would imagine those will be, or the two of them will be 1, 2 in order to be determined. And from there, probably going to be in the area of 4 people most likely fighting for the third spot on the podium as we look at it that way. Looking at it from fighting for that third place spot, you got Emma Lawson, again, just came off a second place finish at the CrossFit Games. She was third at Rogue last year, stepping on the podium finish at, I think she would have just turned 18 or 18 at the time, coming off her phenomenal rookie season of the games. She's someone that probably leads the way. She won 2 events last year at Rogue, including that log muscle up event that we saw there with the muscle ups and the log. I think she was the only woman to get through that event. Interesting to see how she plays or goes within the competition. She's also an athlete that's kind of sneaky strong when you look at her. She was 7th in the Olympic total this year and tied for the 3rd heaviest lift in the Texas log last year with eight other women at 190s. And Lawson has a shot there.
Mhm.
Also have Gabriella Magala as a podium contender as well. She's had a 3rd at the Cross or Rogue before in 2021, had a 5th place last year, and one of 4 athletes that's been top 10 of the games 3 years in a row. She's really kind of building up and coming into her own as an athlete as well. And it seems like training with Laura Horvath and Krypton Athletics seems to be doing well for her this year. So imagine
Mhm.
that.
Also think Gabby is sneaky strong. Like, I think we look to her a
Yeah,
lot of times when it comes to the cardio events. Like, I know she won triple three back at oh my god, they weren't semifinals, they were regionals back then. And she's always top when it comes to the big runs that we have at the games and things like that. But like, you put a heavy barbell out there for reps, that becomes kind of a cardio workout. And she seems to really be able to handle that. So sneaky strong, I think, too.
yeah, definitely when it comes to the cycling, like she was
Mhm.
3rd in Echo Thruster this year at the games,
Mhm.
which is kind of pushing through both pain and as well just moving a barbell.
Mhm.
Again, yeah, Miguel could be there for sure.
Okay.
And then Ariel Lowen, she's obviously 3rd place at the games this year. I was looking just at her season going into it. She's the only woman who was top 5 in the Open, top 5 in worldwide quarterfinals, top 5 in their semifinal, and top 5 at the games.
Yeah.
To actually put a season like that together, incredibly impressive, and just was pretty even across the board. So just nothing, nothing really brought her down over the course of the weekend. It was just pretty steady throughout the games to finish up in 3rd place.
Yeah, she's so consistent.
It was
You can't count
interesting
her out.
when she was on our show, she said to us, Dave, that she would not have been on the podium had Tia competed. So I will be interested to see them go head to head,
Yeah,
particularly as well as Ariel has done this year. Because
Mhm.
I think I told her on the show, yeah, you would have still been on the podium. She's had such a consistent year. And so
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for her.
Yeah, because there's newfound confidence in these women that
Yep.
hit the podium without Tia at the games this past year, and I wonder what that does for the athlete's psyche when she comes back. I wonder if you face her being like, "Oh no, here's the champ again. What's gonna happen to me?" Or if you get out there and you're like, "I'm the champ now. What up?" I don't know.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay, who's the 4th, Dave? There's one more athlete
Yeah.
that's sort of like jostling for this spot, right?
Fourth one, that gets in the mix, Alex Gazan. So really one of the rising stars in the sport.
Okay.
6 at the CrossFit Games, 1 North America West semifinals over Ariel Lowen in that group. And then looking at Alex Gazan's best finishes at the games themselves, she was second in both events that had sandbags and third in both events that had sleds at the games, which an odd object carry is something that we've seen in every Rogue Invitational to this point. Having those types of movements in there, I think will be good for her. She was also one of 3 athletes that didn't have a finish outside the top 20 at all in the CrossFit Games. And I think her worst events were all in the specialist events as well. Just seeing kind of that strength. And again, you talk about confidence coming up, to have that top 6 position at the games with the best and the best in the sport could help Gazan into a podium spot as
Yep.
well.
But she got
Yeah.
off to a fast start at the games too. So a short weekend like Rogue could be good for her.
Hmm. Yeah, I love to see her name up there. That's not who I thought you were gonna say, honestly. Just given sort of the other rankings that happen at the games this past season and also the types of things that we've seen come out of Rogue in the past. So who's next then? Because all the athletes, the 4 athletes you just mentioned could be kind of jostling for 3rd. And so does that put us now like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, looking
Yeah.
at like
So those
7 through
are kind
10
of
kind of?
top 6. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
kind of in the next tier down, kind of have a couple athletes, one being Annie Forrestdottir.
Yeah, I thought
Probably
she was
did,
gonna be your 4th pick for the 3rd place spot, truly.
yeah, it's tough. Like she didn't have probably the best games or didn't meet her expectations of the games I would expect after finishing second at European semifinals. So obviously she's always a threat to the podium, especially at Rogue. Like every time she's been at Rogue, she has finished on the podium. Annie could definitely be somebody that knows how to get there when the competition gets tough. So um, Emma, or she would be one. And the next one, Emma Carey, is somebody else to keep your eye on within
Mhm.
this competition again for that kind of middle top 10 type of range. Seeing her make her way back and finishing top 10 at the games this year was great to see after such a good rookie year at 17 years old. And then for her, she had a world record in test 7 from semifinals, which was the go bike, toast to bar, sandbag carry. And then echo bike and sandbag carry is something that we always see at Rogues. Could really help her with there. And then you take out the last place in the bike that we saw at CrossFit Games and a 39th in the Alpaca Redux, where she just was a couple pulls too short on that rope climb. And then we're not talking about Emma Carey, I think finishing 8th of the game. She's going to be 4th or 5th at the game. Interesting to see how she does. Again, more competition experience under her belt as well as such a young athlete.
Mhm. Okay. I'm looking at this insane roster of women and wondering who in the heck you picked for this last sort of quote unquote contending spot, right? We're in the 10th spot out of 20 athletes.
Yeah, this is really a find where it really gets tough and could ultimately end up falling to how the programming shakes
Mhm.
out once we get there. You got Paige Powers, who was 10th of the games. She obviously broke out this year, starting off with a win at Wadapalooza and a second at the CrossFit Open. You got Danny Spiegel, who won the Q. I think for her, didn't have the CrossFit Games, unfortunately, but didn't also have that dip afterwards in terms of training.
Mhm.
Could be somebody like Chandler Smith last year who won the Q and then comes in and was more peaking in terms of a training perspective instead of just getting back to it, that could surprise everybody, and obviously has the strength to win events, like the log lift last year, the sandbag at the games a couple years ago. Definitely has potential there to surprise people, and it's always good to have a fan favorite do well. And then you got Krun Freyova. She was 14th at the games, but did very poorly in inverted medley at 35th. But this is somebody who just knows how to win off-season competitions. So over the past 12 months, she's won Madrid Championship. She won the French Throwdown this year, and then also won Dubai and the Marbella Championship last year. So is different than some of these other athletes in here that knows just how to win competitions. And then probably the last one jockeying for the end of this top 10 is Danielle Brandon. She was ninth last year at the cross or at Rogue, ninth at the games this year after a fourth place last year. Definitely has the capabilities to break into the top 10, but ultimately just, I feel like for all these women, just the programming is really going to be who shifts around and who has the wheelhouse workouts and who doesn't over the course of the weekend.
And now the Rogue Invitational tends to skew shorter, heavier workouts, more odd objects, more sort of like inspired by the strongman stuff, right? So no, I'm not saying to count anything out. Hey, maybe there's going to be a 40-minute cardio chipper in there. Who knows? But just in general, Dave, is that right? Like we're looking at some shorter, heavier, weirder, odder, quote unquote, style events.
Yeah, they definitely do mix it up. Last year, they did have a big ruck run. I think in their
Mhm.
first one in 2019, they had a run as well. So there was that element in there. But I was looking back at this the other day, is that some of the things that we just expect in a CrossFit competition, like double unders or toes to bar or handstand walks, those types of things just haven't been are common within the Rogue Invitational. So like double unders has only been at Rogue twice. What else was there? There toes to bar has only been once. I don't think chest to
Mm.
bars has ever been programmed at Rogue. Bar muscle ups has been once, and that was on the log last year. So it definitely focuses a bit more to strength, like you said, but then also to who can adapt and who can you know, take what's thrown at them in stride. And if you're having a good weekend or get out to a fresh start and you have that confidence, it's going to help you along the way. But if you potentially struggle with that first one, it might set you back a few places.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm on board with these picks, Dave, and with your reasoning too behind them. I think it's totally sound. John, what do you think?
Well, I was gonna ask you, out of that last group of women he named, could you pick one?
I would probably side with Paige Powers. I'm coming out of head of Wadapalooza. Spiegel was second, so close race there. And another young athlete who just seems to be on the upswing and
Mhm.
probably gained a ton of confidence at the games this year.
What do
Kids, man, they recover in 2 seconds. They
right.
don't have 4-day hangovers. They're just
What do you
jokes.
think, Nikki? Who would you pick?
I would pick Danny, and I would pick her not just because she's my gal pal and I love her to pieces. I would pick her because I am we have no information based off of this past game season. And I think that that gives her an advantage mentally as well as just sort of like in a vacuum of people looking at stats and trying to
Sure.
figure out people's recent performance and where they're at. I think she could use that to her advantage in the mental game when it
Okay.
comes to kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
stepping out onto the competition floor and being like, ain't nobody know where I'm at and I'm about to blow them all away. She also is a stronger athlete. And so for some of that adaptation that Dave mentioned, I think that she has proven time and time again that she can handle weird shit, odd objects, heavy shit.
And they
The
certainly seem to be.
competition should be made for her. So,
Yeah, but she did well in Miami last year, again, a short weekend.
mm.
Not that too different. Although right now it's pumpkin spice latte season and Danny loves her PSL. So,
Yeah, but they give her strength. They give her
maybe,
basic strength. The thing,
maybe.
I'm telling you. Wait, can I throw a sleeper in there and see what Dave
Yeah.
thinks?
Yep.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
My sleeper is Bethany Flores, and I'll tell you why. Because she is strong and she is consistent and she is super experienced. I just don't know if she has the strength and confidence that she had before her injuries. And to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised to even see her on the roster because I do think she had a great season last season, but she surprised herself even just being there. Like when I talked to her at the games, every time I talked to her, she was like, "I didn't even know if I was going to be here," because she barely qualified, and the things that she had to do to even qualify at semis were sort of like pushing the limits of her injuries, and so she's just happy to be there, and then she crushed. So, I was a little bit surprised to see her on this roster where things do skew heavy and odd, that she would put herself in that position, but I'm assuming if she's doing that, then she feels pretty confident in her body and in her recovery. So, I'm just Dave, that's my sleeper. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I had the same kind of hesitation as you have. Just when you hear her story and hear her talking about her struggle back, it seemed at every stage it was a question mark, even if she would be able to compete
Mhm.
there, never mind make it. And so like, to go fifth at semifinals and 15th at the games, when just when you hear the story, it seemed like everything was a question mark. Knowing what Rogue has thrown out there in the past, you got to feel that she feels comfort in where her back is to be able to take that step on the floor. Yeah, she definitely is somebody who could shake it up. I think the last time we saw her at full strength, she was second at Wadapalooza in 2022. So it definitely has that capabilities to make it to the top 10. Just again, everything's a grayed out now because we only see what's put out there through Instagram, but it'll be exciting to watch.
Instagram is reality, Dave. What are you talking about? It's the
Exactly.
perfect mirror of what's happening in your everyday
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Instagram is life. Everyone knows
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Well, I think your list is great, Dave. But hey, before we wrap up on the women, I'm going to circle back to my original question where you guys thought I was nuts because I Googled it. Uh,
Oh, yeah, bring it back, bring it back.
Cara Sanders competed, where is it? 5 months. That was the time frame.
5 months postpartum, and she was at semifinals?
She was
Or was it
it was a CrossFit Sanctional then. So she made the 2020 games that year.
the 2020 games?
Yeah. Here, hold on.
The weird was that the weird games? Did she qualify for phase 1, but not phase 2?
Right, she didn't make the final 5.
Right,
It's
right,
so
right.
here it is, Cara competed in the CrossFit Games Open in October of 2019, 5 months after giving birth to Scotty. She finished 12th and secured herself a spot at the 2020 CrossFit Games. So in those days, you apparently could still qualify.
You could. So she did the open at 5 months pregnant. That's what it
Yeah,
was. That's
5 months
bananas.
postpartum.
5
Yeah,
months
yeah.
postpartum,
Yeah.
sorry. That's insane.
Yeah, yeah, and finished
Yeah,
12th.
so
So, yeah, she's I for whatever reason, like, I always feel like I forget her, and I shouldn't because I'm such a fan, and she's such a terrific athlete and just had baby number 2, which I think is maybe why she was on my mind, but
yeah, that's a good point, John. Thank you for bringing that up. There's a lot of talk about Tia and where she's at in her postpartum journey, and it is important to remember the other women who have also had similar journeys. So thank you for bringing that up.
yep.
For what it's worth, I think Tia will win. I'm just saying it.
Do you?
I do. I do. I do. She's got mom strength now. And also, I just feel like given her legacy, I don't think she would come back if she wasn't confident she could win. And a confident Tia is terrifying for the rest of the field.
Well, I'll give you that. I would never go on record as saying she's not going to win. I've made that mistake with champions in the past, and I will not make it again. So I'm not gonna bet against her, but I will say that Laura's peak Laura right now. So
True.
we'll get the fight of our life out of them. And I agree completely with Dave with the rest of this list. I think you can see some scary performances. The two I was thinking of were Emma Carey and Ariel Owen. I think are both kind of at the top of their game right now. And Alex Kazan, like those three could really shock the world. And any of them could end up on top of the podium. But I'm with
Hmm.
you. Not betting against Tia until she proves me wrong.
Hmm.
All right. Well, this was fun, Dave. Thanks for joining
Thank
and
you.
giving us the women. We're going to get you back on to talk about the men soon. We appreciate everyone listening, and we will chat with you guys very soon.